Today I wanted to talk about the seasons and the elements. Now, anyone who has picked up a beginner book on witchcraft or Wicca, you will quickly find the section that associates the seasons with the elements. Now, typically we don't include spirit, so we're only talking about air, fire, water, and earth. Now, a lot of times I have found that people want things in the craft to fit in a very particular order and in a nice little box, and it just works out wonderfully, and you just make the correspondences work, and it just makes sense. I don't like that. I've often found that most of the time in my own practice, if I try to fit things nicely in a little box, it never works out. Oftentimes, it just means that certain parts of the craft just don't line up the way you would expect it. And by that, I mean it would be lovely to have the wheel of the year and the elements and the seasons line up perfectly, where of course it's going to go in the same order that we want it to, but in my experience it doesn't. So I'm going to go over my associations with the elements and the seasons, and hopefully it will give you some ideas to at least ponder, to contemplate if it works for you or not. So spring for me is earth. It is the one that makes the most sense because a lot of times we put earth in winter. I don't know why. Like, even if you follow what a lot of the books say, it doesn't make sense. The earth is asleep. It is dormant. It is barren. It's covered in snow. When it's springtime, it's not the fresh breeze that I think of. I think of the growing. Everywhere you look is earth. There's the new flowers, the trees are blooming and budding, and there's brand new leaves, and it's green and lush. And it just feels like Earth is just awakened and is now vibrant once more. It would be lovely to have these boxes work out, but I find that it usually doesn't. Because of course you also have the wind from the north that is really, really cold and brings the winter air. So you can argue pretty much any direction that you want for the elements. This is the one that just works for me, and again with the seasons as well. The only one that typically is agreed upon pretty much across the board is that summer and fire are connected. The association is pretty easy to see. It's the heat of the summer, especially for those of us who have much more range in our seasons. Those of you who have like a little bit of variation but not as much might not appreciate it as much, especially like as you get closer to the equator or places where again you don't have as much temperature change. But for those of us here in Utah specifically, like, it goes from real cold to real hot because we've had single digits this winter, and in the summer it's 100% going to be over 100 degrees. Like, it always gets really, really hot. So it's just inevitable. So naturally, summer is associated with fire. Also living in Utah, it's fire season. Like, you constantly have the warnings everywhere you go. Do not have a fire. You will catch everything on fire and you will get fined a lot. Nevertheless, pretty much every year, there's idiots who refuse to listen to the rules and catch everything on fire. Whether it's unattended campfires that they've left and now, oh my god, guess what, the mountain's on fire. Or you get the idiots that still think we need to do fireworks in a desert that's like ready to catch on fire in no fireworks zones. Just use drones, guys. It's fine. Modern technology. Use it. But needless to say, the sun is close, it's very warm, everything's really hot in the summer, so naturally fire and summer. It's also the time that a lot of people will have barbecues and backyard campfires. Again, practice fire safety, people. Don't be dumb. Oftentimes autumn is associated with water. Again, it fits the narrative. You go from air to fire to water. I don't like that. For me, autumn is air. Autumn is often when we have the leaves blowing around in the autumn breeze. It's when we can feel the chill, but if there's no air blowing around, it's usually still warm. And lastly, the one that, again, makes the most sense, especially where I live, is winter and water. I have complained about this, I think on both channels at this point, but if I haven't, oh my god, snow. I know it's hit a lot of other states. I think the news had said something that it was like 43 states were affected by this winter storm. We definitely got hit with it and it sucked. So the winter storm that we recently had gave us a bunch of snow. Like, it's knee deep in some spots where it's drifted because it was also really windy. It was hip deep. I'm not like terribly tall. I'm only like 5'3", but like that still sucked. Like, that is real deep snow. And it took like at least 6 shovelfuls of snow just to find the packed snow at the bottom, to give context. So needless to say, the ground is covered in water. Everywhere you look, it's either snow or ice or slush, or it's melting snow, so it's just water running all through the streets and soaking the ground. Water is prevalent. And again, living in Utah, this is the season that we get the most water from. We do get some rainstorms here and there throughout the year, but not nearly as much as other places. Like if we get a rainstorm, it's like, oh my God, stop everything you're doing. We gotta go put a jar outside and collect some water, because it's like really not a common occurrence. And so this is the time when we have snow often. Most of the time, it's at least once a week you're out there shoveling. We've got a lot of snow and it stays. And it's just there. And it's not fun because it's cold and it's wet. And like your pant legs are constantly getting soaked because, again, water, the snow gets on your pants and then it melts when you come inside, and then your floors are wet because you have snow tracked throughout the house. Like, water is everywhere this time of the year, just not in a form we typically enjoy. And so to say it's earth never has suited me, I always think of winter as water, because that's what's around the absolute most. Now the thing with this is that honestly, I feel like you should definitely contemplate it for what works and what's happening in your area. If you get a lot of tropical storms or something in like the spring, yeah, it's probably going to be more appropriate to have water as your season in the spring. Or if you get a lot of wind or something in the summer, you might have air in the summer instead of fire. I think it's always important to analyze and really question why certain things are assigned to certain places. Honestly, I think it's simply because we wanted to have it fit perfectly. It's lovely to go in a circle and have everything line up perfectly. I found nature does not fit perfectly into these boxes that we wanted to. And instead of fighting against it and having to analyze and convince myself otherwise, I find it easy just to roll with what works for me. So this is how the elements and the seasons work. And again, if I lived other places, it might be different, but this is how it works out well for me. I would love to hear how you set the elements and the seasons. Did you actually analyze it, or did you read it in a book and accepted it and never really questioned it? Huge thank you to my patrons. I will have their names here on the screen. If you'd like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it is patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like and subscribe. I post every single day. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.